Dan's a fantastic man. He really is.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
What's going on, everybody? This is Dan French Workbench Podcast here on a Tuesday, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Those of you just waiting in the waiting room, we love this. We're streaming live here from Las Vegas, and we want to thank everybody out there for tuning in and also supporting the channel. Please, if you guys have not supported the channel, hit that like button. Also, subscribe if you like the content. We love that. This is the channel that's the most real and behind the scenes information regarding financing, real estate, money talk, entrepreneurs, educating through on-job experience here in Las Vegas. I'm your host, Dan French, and we have a full crew here today. Let's take a look and see what we got. So first off, I'm going to introduce Mr. Kit Carson. Kit, what's going on, buddy? He's a flipper, he's a realtor. And you're from Ugly Houses, right? We flip ugly. We buy ugly houses.
Yeah, we buy ugly houses, aka Homevestors. It's a national company. I own a franchise here in Las Vegas. So this is you call it.
You don't look like a caveman.
You know, I get that all the time. I had a beard at one point. And that's how I got you.
You know what
and then I brought a money bag to every meeting. So
That's
made it easy.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but is your last name literally Carson?
Yes, sir. It is.
Kit Carson.
Yes, sir.
After the Kit Carson?
Yes, sir.
Is your dad's name Kit Carson?
Yep, I'm fifth generation. Well, his name wasn't Kit Carson, but I am fifth generation.
What, it mean to the Kit Carson?
Yep.
Wow.
Whoa. Hold on a second.
I buried the lead there. I buried the lead with
You're Kit Carson's great.
It's technically nephew.
Really?
Nephew.
Yeah.
Do you guys know who Kit Carson is?
No, tell us who Kit Carson is, buddy.
He's a frontiersman, trailblazer. Like, if you know who Lewis and Clark is, he essentially was like kind of like that.
He's
There's some city named after him?
Wow.
In
Yeah,
northern,
Carson
Northern
City.
Nevada, yeah.
Carson City.
Wow.
The capital.
He was responsible for basically moving the military west during the expansion of the United States in the 1800s.
We got a local celebrity here. I'm from the north, so maybe it's not as a big deal.
Well, let's go ahead and introduce Mr. Joe Dragon. He's back. What's up, buddy? How are you?
What's going on?
How's life, man? What's happening in your world?
Or just living the dream, as I do every day. Glad to be back on the show.
Yeah, we
Glad to
appreciate
get into
you being
some
back.
informative information for everybody here. Let's dig into it.
And guys, if you guys, we want to thank you guys obviously for tuning in. We're going to go through the cast here, and if everything is, I feel like I'm hearing an echo, but if we're not hearing an echo, we're fine.
I'm hearing a little bit on his mic.
Yeah, my mic seems to be
and
a
I
little.
don't know where that's coming from, so I just want to let everybody know if we can figure that out.
I think it's coming from my mic.
Oh, it's coming from a mic.
Yeah, this mic.
Oh, I see. Okay, so we fixed it. We had an echo there, guys, so for a second. But I wanted to just kind of correct that. So let's go right across the room here. We're going to go ahead and introduce our other guests. We also have Mr. Rich Salas. Rich, what's up, buddy? How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Good, man. Thanks for coming in. So you're an estate attorney. You do taxes. You got a lot of stuff going on. So tell us what you're about, man. Tell us how you got started.
Yeah. So I'm an estate planning attorney here in town in Las Vegas. I've only been an attorney for a short while, but I have worked in law offices for like the past 10 years. I've been a realtor for the last 5 years. I've been doing taxes for the last 7 years. So I've kind of a lot of different hats that I wear, but I'd say I can bring a lot to the table, things like that. But,
right. So how long you been doing? You said how long you been doing?
Well, I've been working in estate planning probably for over a decade.
Okay.
So I've only been a licensed attorney though for a short period of time. So, I've been working in estate planning for a very long time. So,
Mr. Joe Dragon over here, you kind of do the same thing a little bit, right?
That's part of my practice. Yep.
Part of your practice.
Big part
so you guys probably have a lot in
So-
common. That's kind of cool that you guys both came on to talk. Maybe kind of meeting of the minds over here with this. So
Yeah.
right.
Stand back.
I'm taking him to the ditch after this. That's awesome, though.
And we also got Mr. Mike Keeler. He's financial planner. He's back. He's got a lot of good information to talk. Mike, what's happening, buddy? What's going on?
Living the American dream, trying to avoid the heat. Holy cow, it's still hot out there.
Isn't it hot, man? I went to go and drop off my son, or pick up my son, today. 5 minutes I was out of the car. Air conditioning was blowing, going crazy. 5 minutes I was out of the car, and I swear I got back. My back was sweaty. My head was sweaty. I was just completely in sweat in 5 minutes. So everybody wants to come to Vegas.
Yeah, is it just me? I mean,
Not this time of year.
I've been here for 4 years, but it's hot every summer. But this one seems I don't know what it is.
I think
Maybe
it's
getting older.
consistently hot.
It's the
It's just
humidity.
annoying the
this
crap
summer.
out of
Yeah,
it.
there's more humidity this summer, I think.
Yeah.
We've had a lot more monsoons and such, so
Yeah.
I do like the monsoons though.
they
A
are
little
fun.
rain.
It's the only time it cools off in the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's true. True.
Oh, look, it's 80 instead of 100.
Thank God.
So
Don't
we
you
gotta-
love all the imported smoke too?
Oh gosh, thanks California.
So let's get right into it, guys. We got a full show today. We're going to talk today about flipping homes. Is there an opportunity to flip a home in this market? You know, it seemed like a lot of investors are coming into this market and snatching up homes. We got Blackstone, a lot of these big investors, hedge fund investors coming in, finding out what they're going to do with those properties. Also, we're going to talk about market updates. We're going to talk about why somebody would use an estate attorney and when that actually takes place. And then also we're going to go through some of the stories and things that he has to talk about and some of the education he's going to provide. And we're going to talk about home buyers. And home buyers right now, they are losing their buying power. Their purchasing power is dwindling. FHA buyers out the door, right? So unfortunately, that's the situation. Now, we want everybody to have an opportunity to get into a home, but we're not seeing that. And we're seeing that only 28% of people out there, which has declined from 32% to 28%, think that now is a good time to buy a home. You know, you can think of like some of these big investors, how they think opposite and say, well, I'm going to buy when everybody else isn't buying. I think there was a big investor that said that, but I don't know. I mean, you'd be obviously overpaying for the home. We are seeing some data, though, that's starting to ease up a little bit in this market.
I don't know
And
if it's obvious.
what's that?
I don't know if it's obvious. I mean, who knows?
I think it's very subtle. You know, I think, and you're starting to get to a point where we might not have hit that peak, but I feel that we're starting to get close to that. So a lot of people out there in the markets, you know, we're going to talk to Kit here. He's a realtor out there. He goes out and he knows what these clients are going through. So with these buyers out there and with the market, I feel that there's a lot of people. We're going to start here and talk about what's going on in the housing market with this situation. I feel like a lot of buyers out there have just lost faith altogether. The average buyer out there just does not want to buy a home. Maybe they're pushing this off till October, November.
Is it because it's too expensive? What's the deal?
Well, I think it's a lot of the competition. The unfortunate thing is about a month ago, it's actually slowing down a little bit. A month ago, you'd be one of 20 offers, right? You'd be like, good luck buying in Summerlin if you weren't paying over asking without an appraisal.
Right.
But now, at least I'm finding with my properties that I'm selling, it's no longer 15 offers. It's maybe 3 or 4. And it's dwindling a little bit. But I think that's because of what you just said, though. A lot of them left the market due to just frustration, right?
Yeah.
It's similar in like economic data when somebody's talking about people looking to get a job, right? In the labor force data, when people just stop looking for a job because they get discouraged because they can't get a job that they want, right? Similar thing in the housing market. They just feel like they can't get the house of their dreams, so why
bother?
Why
Yes.
bother?
Well, it's
Yes.
so time consuming to find the house that you want to put an offer on.
Oh, yeah.
And to just constantly be, told no.
So I have a couple buyers right now that I've been working with for the last couple months, and I know some problems that we're running into is it's also the lack of inventory. They don't have the choices that they necessarily want in some of the properties that they're looking at. The competition has gotten better,
Sure.
but they don't have as much inventory to choose from. A lot of the neighborhoods that they want to buy in, there just aren't homes for sale in some of them. And then I know that at least with some of my buyers, they see that there's been a 23% price increase since last year.
100%.
And some of them are thinking, maybe that's going to come down. Maybe I should wait 6 months. Maybe I should see what's going to happen 6 months from now.
I think the data shows opposite of that, though, because I mean, if you look at there's this article that me and my partner, we just thought it was like a clickbait article. Basically, the headline was like, Las Vegas is the least affordable place to live in America, and I was like, are you kidding me? Have you looked at Phoenix? Have you looked at Salt Lake? Have you looked at Denver?
San Francisco?
What about L.A.? When
Right.
the median home price is $700,000 in
Right.
L.A. and average income is nowhere near that.
Right.
Las Vegas, the median income right now is what, $46,000?
I think it's a little higher
it's
than that.
up.
It's a little
Probably,
higher?
yeah,
Is
it's
it-
probably
is it-
closer to 60, but still.
It's not quite that. Phoenix is 62,
Yeah.
I think. I think it's
Yeah.
a little less than Phoenix, but Phoenix went up, I think, 40%
Wow.
in the last year. So the headline really should have said
Yeah.
Phoenix is the least affordable place. I think you got to look at affordability based on median income and median house price, right? And
Yeah.
how they work together. Denver is opposite. I think median price is well above 400,000, and their income is nowhere near affordability factors for that. So I don't know. The headline was clickbaity, and it kind of frustrated me.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah. People just basically make things up. But so Kit, Or
Yeah.
Mr. Carson. Is it okay if I call you Mr. Carson?
You know what?
I
If
keep
you want to call
wasting
me
that name, the Kit
Daddy
Carson
works too.
We'll just go with Daddy. So Daddy, you're in the.
Honey, I hope you're watching. Daddy works there too.
So you're in the housing flipping business, right?
Yes.
How long you been in that business?
That's like my main business. So I've been doing it. This is about my 5th year.
And what enticed you to get into that? So you got in about what, 2016?
Oh yeah. So no. So like the end of it, yes. So it was kind of on accident. So I worked in politics before. I was
Yeah, with that name, I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, it was.
You don't
yeah.
understand this name.
Oh,
though.
come on, I'm
Yeah,
done.
so-
Let's leave.
So
No, he got out of it.
Show's over.
I got out of it because I just got in real estate on accident. I wasn't making the money I wanted to make for my family, and it was the neighbor next door actually moved in, and it was a gutted house. It was all the way to the studs, and beautiful
Here in
home.
Vegas?
It was in Reno.
Okay.
It was a beautiful home, and I'm like, well, they're gonna have to buy it cash because they can't get a loan. There's just no studs or anything. So the guy buys it, renovates it, moves his beautiful family in, and I said, what the heck does this guy do for a living?
Right.
I have to know. He bought the home for $320 cash and then renovated for at least $50,000. So, and then he probably refinanced it, of course. But he had the capital to do it. I just wonder who he is. Went, knocked on the door, introduced myself as a neighbor, and I was like, hey, do you happen to play golf? And he's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, oh man, me too. I'd love to get to know you and go play some golf. I played for the University of Nevada, so
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I was a D1 athlete. Yeah, so I was like, he didn't know that, and of course I always bury the lead. So we end up going out, and I hit my first tee shot, and he was like, all right, this kid,
This sucks.
Yeah.
this guy knows how to play. But he was flipping houses, and I just started gluing myself to him and was like, I want to better my own life. And that's how I got started. Just kind of on accident, dumb luck.
Okay. So you obviously like it right now, right, still? So-
Fantastic. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It changed my life. I went from a broke kid working 3 jobs to flipping houses and raising capital and having a great time with it.
Okay, and so you just started a company after that, or with
Well,
him?
it was a
or?
little bit harder than that. So I started wholesaling first. So if people don't know what wholesaling is, do they know? I don't.
They probably don't know, but I mean, if we go in the technicals, it'll probably take them down a rabbit hole.
It
But
will.
just kinda-
It will. So
yeah.
so wholesaling, you're a middleman, right? You're a
Uh-huh.
seller. I get you in a contract, and then I sell it to this gentleman over here who's actually going to buy it and flip it, right? And then I make a margin in between. That's wholesaling. That's
Yeah, it's similar to like brokering a loan.
Yeah, I got
right?
you.
Okay.
Similar thing.
That's
so.
the quick and dirty version. So I started doing that because it requires no capital. You don't have to actually buy the house. You don't have to know any GCs or anything like that. And then I started. The guy next door in this story was a HomeVestor franchisee, and I was like, "What's that?" He's like, "Well, it's basically a marketing engine of sellers that want to sell for cash." Well, that seems like a quicker way than me knocking on doors and figuring out if people want to sell for cash. Like they're going to be calling me. That seems way easier. The catch was that it costs a lot of money to buy a franchise, and so I hired this, I guess, broker. I don't really know what he did or if he was even licensed, to be honest.
Yeah.
And he helped me fill out applications to these banks for credit cards.
Okay.
And so I got an unsecured line of credit.
Yeah.
And I maxed it out to buy the franchise, and that's how I got started.
Oh, wow.
So I basically, if I did the math, if I didn't buy a house in the first 3 months, I was going to go bankrupt.
Yeah, big risk, big reward. So
Yeah.
now you're loving it now, right?
I just believe in life. You got to jump in the deep end. Otherwise,
Yeah.
why bother?
Yeah. No, that's bold.
Yeah.
Forge pays the board. So then you moved down here, though.
I ended up moving down here. Yeah. So when the pandemic happened, I was buying in both markets, in Reno and Vegas, and my wife's from here, so it just kind of made it an easier transition. And with the greater population, there's more houses to buy. So you might cap in Reno where you can only buy maybe 3 houses a month. Down here, you could buy 7. So it's just a different market.
Okay, so that's your process.
Yeah.
So take us to the process. So you go out and look for houses that are in disrepair, or what are you looking for? How does this work?
So it's more data driven than that. So really, people we advertise directly to sellers that fit a mold that would sell at a discount. So people with high equity, maybe they've owned the home for a long time. If somebody, for example, has owned the home since 1980, right? They probably have a ton of equity. It probably needs repairs, and so rather
a lot
than
of updating.
it needs updating because it
Yeah.
needs to get to 2021 standards, right, in order to sell for that top dollar.
Yeah.
And so they are typically the ones that are going to call.
Okay, so they're looking to. I mean, they're still making a bunch of money, so they're not worried about nickel and diming you.
Yeah, or
They don't want to
there's-
deal with repairing it and that
Yeah,
sort of thing.
there's extenuating circumstances too, right? I mean, it could be like great example is I had a gal that had a job opportunity in West Virginia, and she was like, "I need to be in West Virginia in 2 weeks," and I said, "Okay, I'm a realtor, so I'd say, well, you can list your home, and this is the process what it takes to list your home, or you could take the cash offer. Is it less? Yes, it's going to be less. You're going to sell it at a discount.
Yeah, go ahead.
But it's going to be hitting the easy button and you can move. And that's so it doesn't, it's not always, a lot of people think like we're the boogeyman, right? And we're like, you're buying these people that are behind on their mortgages and they're underwater. It's really not. It's really not that.
Well, there's different layers to all of these things we're talking about. But, you know, you look at the average buyer out there when we were talking about it, which kind of coincides with what we're saying. When you have this much, I wouldn't say negativity, but this much doubt in the housing market to buy at this point, maybe just because of discouragement. You know, we're thinking, you know, you're talking about a lot of buyers out there that were looking for homes. They can't afford these homes anymore. A lot of them internally, right? Vegas, you're saying what's the average median wage earning, right?
Yeah.
That's a problem because I think where everybody's getting the problem, or not the problem, but where everybody's getting where they're like, hey, I don't want all these people, out-of-state buyers coming. It's driving the market up and it's going to push me out of buying a house altogether. I think that the situation is that when you look at pushing everybody out of the market because out-of-state buyers are driving these prices up, it's causing people to have less faith in going and buying at this time, and they might be pushing it out maybe towards the end of the year. Are you seeing that with buyers right now, both you guys that are out there, like they're just like, you know what, this is not my market?
Absolutely. I think the short answer is yes. People are fleeing from buying homes just because they feel it's overpriced and they can't afford it, really. I mean, an average Nevadan that is working at a casino, hospitality, they just can't afford this housing market. And if they do want to buy a house, it's in a neighborhood that's probably not their first choice.
So how is that affecting your business as far as, like, because you're buying, all right, you buy a house discounted, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess you have capital to fork over that cash.
Yes.
Okay, and then what's your turnaround to get that?
Usually we turn the house around within 3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months?
Yeah, typically.
What's your average spending in repair costs?
It's gone up with the pandemic.
Yeah, that's what I was curious
I mean,
about.
so lumber went up like 400% over the last year. It was a joke.
There was a fire too, right? That messed that up as well.
Well, no, it was supply chain issues. So a lot of the suppliers thought that the pandemic was going to create like less movement in the market, and actually it didn't happen. So it happened for like a month and a half, and it freaked everybody out. All the suppliers, the flooring, the wood, everybody. And so when it realized that actually the housing market took off, and after people stopped freaking out and cleaning off their groceries, they were like, oh, we didn't produce enough lumber, and now it's back ordered. Or better yet, I had LVP flooring sitting on the harbor for months because the union went on strike because not a lot of them can go work, so nobody was unloading the boat.
Right.
And there was an article in whatever the paper is out there. Does anybody read newspapers anymore?
Well, yeah, right.
I do,
online
actually.
on the
do.
website. Yeah. There was a photo of boats just miles out in the harbor, just waiting to be unloaded, and my flooring sitting on the boat.
Right.
So at least it wasn't in the Suez Canal.
For real though, for real. I want to know what that guy was on, and we should all get that.
So how much of these? How much has this jacked up your repair costs?
A lot. So great example. A couple days ago, I walked a house and it was probably 1,300 square feet. Didn't need much. Needed like paint, flooring, maybe some countertops, and new appliances. A very straightforward renovation like that. It was rare to spend 15 grand. It was rare. You're just paying, I think it was like $1.30 a square foot for paint, and then it was like $4.70 installed for flooring, plus the labor, that included the labor and everything.
So what's it at now?
Now it's much higher. So now
like 30. What?
It's
double?
super rare for me to spend less than 20 grand on a house. Very rare.
Okay. So it's gone up significantly, 25%, 30%, something like that.
Significantly.
Let me ask you a question. Did you still buy that house to flip?
I'd try and buy it deeper is really the answer. Or my hope. So another good example is the hope is that you're chasing on the back end. You're hoping that it appreciates 10 grand by the time you go to sell it.
So that hope, does that cause you to purchase or let it sit?
It causes anxiety is what it causes.
But you're still purchasing or no?
If I feel, we're in a gambling city, if I feel that I have a greater probability of making that margin, yes, I'll buy it. If I feel that I do not, due to days on market, neighborhood, variety of factors, no, I won't buy it.
Gotcha. And the reason I'm asking is trying to get some insight on what the market is, where it's going. So people like you, boots on the ground in the trenches, what your thought process is, I think is really valuable for everybody listening when their own thought process is. Because you're looking at an investment standpoint, but you're also looking at this thing as having a ceiling. Because it's not like, all right, 25,000 extra, I'm just going to do it, that comes into play. So, yeah, Rich,
I
what do
was
you
just going to throw in after that, too, that with kind of going back to the what's discouraging buyers, and the one thing that I have talked to with a couple of buyers that I'm working with right now is that even though prices have gone up, you have to look at where mortgage interest rates are, and they are so much lower than they have been historically.
Absolutely.
So I've tried to have, I've had that good discussion with them about, like, I know
And
the
where are
price
they
is
going to
gonna-
go?
Well, and that's the thing. Mortgage rates are not going to stay where they are. They are going to have to go up. They can't stay this low. They've already gone up from where they were, a few months ago, or at least where they were like maybe 6 months ago. I mean, not a whole lot, but they're not.
Well,
but they're not going to stay at 2.5%. They're going to have to start raising rates at some point. And at least right now, even if your house has gone up 50 grand in value, the 2% less on your mortgage from what it was a few years ago, your payments are not going to be
Right.
It probably might even be less depending on that price points and your mortgage rate.
Yeah, I mean, as inflation goes too. I mean, we talk about this.
Inflation,
I mean,
exactly.
inflation's a big deal. I think it's been like 1979 or 78. That's as high as we've been on inflation, and we're starting to see these numbers. Yeah, it's a huge number
was
right
it
now.
that high though? Well,
I think it was pretty high. I mean, that's some of the data I've been reading.
Jimmy Carter days.
Yeah,
Woo!
Jimmy Carter days, right?
A couple of weeks ago, 12 months is 5.2%.
Yeah,
which isn't by itself an extremely
5 point. I don't know if it's that high. I would say it's probably closer to 4, maybe 3.5.
Sorry,
4.
I didn't mean to miss. But
yeah.
Oh, you're good.
In a normal year, that's not too alarming. But the thing about it is the rate at which it increased. I think that's the alarming part.
But it is the things that have brought it up so high too. It's only certain parts of the market, like cars, because they have a chip shortage, or lumber because they, for whatever reason, I don't know exactly why, but they had this lumber shortage, or the price of lumber went super high. And I do think that some of the stuff will come down as supply chains get back in line.
I've heard builders are waiting for refrigerators to be delivered.
Air
and
conditioning parts.
Yeah,
things like that.
That's tough.
But some of that stuff should get back
Well,
to normal.
these
as
are-
the
it
world
will,
begins to function normally. It's just how long is that going to take?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's an example. I'm going to give a real life example. I was delayed in filing my taxes because I had my firstborn, like literally the day that taxes were due.
Congratulations.
So I said, hey, told my accountant, file extension.
Baby dragon.
We'll get it done, whatever, next month. So I filed last month. And apparently I was owed all the stimulus stuff that had been backdated.
And you want to get that child tax credit
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
I get checks sent $9,000 because they didn't. I guess they didn't pay me enough, whatever. But
For the stimulus.
and you talk about
It's a lot of money.
inflation.
Yeah.
What that did to my psychology, I was like, whew.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm gonna chill the rest of the night. Like this is ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
If that happens to everybody else, that's the effect of a lot of inflation is that everybody starts spending, well, I don't recommend you spend it, make them save it. But my point is, I think that has a lot to do with what we're seeing in inflation. Rich, what is your life story though? Let's back up a second. I want to know about Rich here.
I gotta leave some of it out.
Rich, you got
censor some of it.
everybody's got closets, man. Yeah, go-
Saturdays we open up the closets. Tuesdays strictly business.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna keep it to
But
I'll keep it to the G-rated.
I got a thing about it. So some of these buyers out there, they're out there and they're looking for things to buy, and some of the challenges. And we know that we'll talk to him about some of the challenges. What are some of the challenges that you're going through personally? With give us some experiences that some people are actually dealing with while you're in the trenches, because I think people really want to know. We all know the stigmas that there's not a lot of homes, prices are going crazy, but what are you actually going through with borrowers? And I feel like agents are somewhat of being like a therapist, where they got to kind of guide the situation, right?
Well, one of my borrowers, actually, right now, the thing we're doing is we're working on her credit. So that's kind of not even really real estate. We're just, I mean, it is, but we're working on her credit.
But it's real. I mean, people, not everybody's going to have great credit, especially coming maybe out of this situation we had.
Yeah, we've had that credit repair guy on the show, and I mean it's real.
Yeah,
I understand what you're dealing with.
So, and I mean, she's in a good position. She's got plenty of funds that she inherited from a parent. But and her husband's they can get a VA loan and things like that, but neither of them had credit. So like with them, we've just been working on their credit, getting them secured cards.
So are they just discouraged? They're just like, hey, I'm outside the market. I don't want to be. I don't want to even try because.
Yes, so that's taken a while. We've been every week. I'm never gonna get there, And I'm like, no, we look at your credit score now. We're like 10 points away from the last time we talked to the mortgage company, and they said that was the bottom score that we needed to get you that VA loan. So, but one of my other buyers, I think this was in like May, so this is a few months ago, and
Sure.
things I think have gotten a little bit better since May. But we were looking in some very like, it was a very confined area. It was, I want this neighborhood, and so that always makes it a little bit harder. But the few houses that we put offers in, and there was, I think one of the houses, we got there the day it got listed. We put in an offer the next morning, and they'd already been accepted because they'd had 20 offers above list price by like 15, 20 grand or something like that.
Got you.
And so with him, it was just that we put in several offers, and then it was, okay, let's just stop and wait for a while.
Sure.
And so he's just holding back now. And so, and I keep telling him, well, but with him, it's more of I want this very specific neighborhood. So
Gotcha.
each buyer, they have their own, they bring their own caveats to the table that sometimes make it harder to get that deal for them.
Right.
But at least with my one buyer, we're waiting now because it was too hard, and now there's just nothing for sale.
Yeah, I think it's you're looking up at a big, it's a challenge. Like you got a big mountain to climb.
Yeah.
And especially if you got credit issues, you got some problems. Like it's not problems, but people know that there's hurdles that they have to overcome. And when you have multiple things that need to take place, and you're in a market that's already tough, it's appreciating, and prices keep going up. If you're an average buyer out there, FHA buyer that can put the minimum down, you're probably looking at this thing going, man, why am I even doing? Why am I trying? Yeah. I think there's discouragement out there for people. So I don't know. I think investors right now seem like they're just the ones out there starting to kind of creep into this market and pull in some of these properties.
Right. And your point as far as being discouraged about a situation, which, hey, things happen to everybody a lot. You're not in the same boat. So, Rich, you've been in this business for 10 years. It sounds like you're focused on real estate, helping out people with credit and stuff, or thing. So if somebody's listening right now, they've got a low credit score or something like that, what's the first thing you would, tell them? Like a piece of advice?
Are we talking about a buyer?
Yeah, a buyer. Look, maybe he's buying a house or something, or just, wants to raise their credit, just doesn't feel like they can't do it. Yeah.
Well, I'd say, first of all, don't give up. That's like probably the first and most important thing, because I think that's where pretty much everyone gets in their own way. And I think a lot of people, like we were talking about, is just don't get discouraged. Like it's easy to get discouraged. You can always find a reason why you can't do something, or why something's not going to happen for you.
Right.
What about the motivation though? Like, how do you keep somebody motivated if they're just in a market like this? Like, I'll be honest, if I was in this market, I don't think this is a healthy market.
Alcohol?
Well, I think it's right. Alcohol.
Well, I think it's one of those things too, where it's like the market is always changing, and so like the market now is a little different than it was a few months ago, and it's probably going to be a little different a few months from now. And so just reminding them that what it is today it's going to change. You never know what's going to happen. I also think, not to get off topic, but I think when this eviction moratorium finally ends, which I thought it had. But I think that's going to open things up. People are going to have to get evicted. Foreclosures are going to happen. Things will start moving again. Prices will come down, at least maybe on some rental units, or maybe not. But it should get units moving. There should be some flow again. But there's a lot of things, and I mean that's just one factor.
Sure.
But I think just telling them that, remember, things changed. Like a year ago, things were different than they are. A year ago, things are going to be different than they are today. And if you want that home, we can make it happen. You just, but sometimes too,
got to be patient.
You got to be patient, and then too, sometimes you have buyers who aren't really serious about it, and they'll weed themselves out.
Right.
That's the truth.
Are you going through the same thing like with your buyers? I mean, you do a lot of
I don't work with too many buyers, but I do it occasionally.
Sure.
A lot of times if somebody's referred, I'll do it. Mainly with sellers though. I think if you're an FHA loan, good luck, like for real. Because as a seller,
no
right?
shot.
That's tough.
Yeah, if you're a seller, you get 3 offers: conventional, cash, and FHA. Like, are you really going to take the loan that has the more underlying conditions and the more stringent? No, you're not. You're going to take conventional or cash.
Why is that though? Is that because it ties them up in the selling process, not to do it again?
Well, there's just more that goes into it, like with the inspections and it's the loan.
So it's more of a burden when I'm getting to sell it.
It's more of a burden, yeah. So if you're a seller, the easier button is going to be the cash because they can waive contingencies. Conventional is always good too. FHA is the one that you kind of like look at as a seller, and you're like, do I want to gamble with that? Even if they're higher, maybe not.
And the gamble part is just having to go through all those inspections.
Or maybe they don't even. Maybe they can't actually afford it. Maybe they're maxing out the 3.5% down, and they can't actually afford the closing.
Yeah, but as the seller, how does that hurt you? Because
well, going back to market sucks.
Yeah,
that's how.
No, I'm just trying to clarify.
Ask away. I don't get offended at all. No, right. I think going to market sucks because typically pre-pandemic and pre all this nonsense of 20% increases, going back to market meant less in a price. It meant if I listed for 560 and then we end up down the road, we do these inspections, blah, blah, blah. Then we got to go back to market. It means I'm probably going to sell for like 555. I'm not going to sell for 560 anymore because buyers think something's wrong with it now, even though nothing was wrong with it. It was just a financing contingency that the buyer
in
couldn't
today's market, though, is that
today's market doesn't matter as much.
I mean, you check out prices and they keep going up by 10,000. They don't sell every month.
Absolutely.
Which is like, oh, I'll just keep jacking it up. Which is a crazy scenario, but I feel like it's what we're in.
Well, it's just because demand and supply, it's an economic problem. We're in an issue where we just have no supply, and there's just more and more demand every month. It feels like, anyways. A lot of the houses that we flip, they're not being bought by Nevadans. They're being bought by somebody from California.
Absolutely.
Well, of course.
That,
you wouldn't see a spike in prices if it wasn't from California.
I don't think we
not
would.
enough Nevadans to do
Well,
that.
I want to bring up something here. So, running altitude, he's somebody on the show. He's saying that Denver's median price point right now is at looks like it's at 600,000.
Wow. Yeah,
so
it's high.
That's high, right?
I mean, what's his name?
His name is running at altitude. He's always on here. At
so
altitude.
if he looks at median income, right?
Yeah.
That's where, in my opinion, when you look at data, right, you got to look at median income versus median price. That's how you can determine affordability, and it's a percentage, right? So here in Nevada, we have a better percentage of that than we do in some place like Denver. You know, it's more affordable here based on that type of ratio.
Right.
And some economists will disagree. They'll say, well, no, it's not based on that. It's based on other factors. Economists all have opinions, just like we all have opinions.
Sure.
My opinion is if the median income isn't rising with median price, that's where the affordability issue comes.
Well, do you guys think this is a healthy market or an unhealthy market based upon what you see? Like, I think a healthy market to me is...
you're doing it.
There you go. Good question.
You got more supply on 6 months supply, let's say. Prices aren't increasing as much, and then the average wage earner, especially Las Vegans, can they actually come out and afford a house? I think this is an unhealthy market. I don't think it's going. I don't see how it's going to turn out good.
Unhealthy for a consumer, or
I think it's getting worse.
Yeah,
I think that we're getting to that point where the average Vegas Las
Vegas, yeah,
is getting priced out.
It's a tough situation, right?
It's tough.
But
if they can't afford a home in their own city, the prices can't stay. I think that's.
But what do you, as far as healthy, what do you mean? As far as just healthy housing market specifically, or economy, or what are we talking?
If we're using the data point as days on market, then yes, it's not healthy.
No.
However, I would argue it's not going to go down. I think we just have way too much demand for any prices to actually shift. Even if the percentage of homes that are actually in forbearance versus the percentage of homes that are going to be like evicted, for example, right?
Sure.
I get landlords that call me and they're like, hey, the tenant hasn't paid in X amount of time. I can't evict them. It's easier to evict now. It just takes a long time. It's a process. But during the main pandemic part, like maybe November, they'd be like, hey, they haven't been paying for 6 months. Can't get them out. I can't pay the mortgage. What am I supposed to do? Okay, you could sell it to us. However, if they're within their lease, that you can't evict them. That issue still exists. But even if all of them come to the market, every single house gets listed for sale, we won't hit 6 months inventory. There's no way, because we're only talking like a few thousand homes.
Yeah. Well,
and the July housing report just came out, and it's still less than
it's still less. So I feel like if we want to talk about, like, somebody's going to buy a house right now, and they're going to live in it for 5-10 years, right? I think the average person lives in a home for 7 years, 6 years, something.
It's actually increasing. It's actually going up. Yeah, it's going up to 10 years now, because you can't just pick up and pack up and move like you used to, especially with prices. So, and also think about
now when you get married and they've got a whole bunch of stuff,
right?
And their kids
you got
have
baby dragons running around. So
that's got a new.
I came down here with half a U-Haul, like the small ones.
Yeah.
Jeez. Now there's not more room in my house for all that stuff. We
you need a semi truck now.
I know. But Mike, let me ask you a question. Sure. Because we can't waste your beautiful face over there. So we're talking about healthy market, and I think what we're talking about is the housing market isn't healthy as far as consumers coming in and purchasing markets. But in your all years in financial planning and all years in Las Vegas, as far as the economy itself, where do you see it going? And I guess the more specific question I have is, if you got offered a job here from some outside city and you look at your salary and then you realize you can't really get a house, do you think it's still advantageous to come here and find some sort of, force yourself in some sort of living arrangement because you make it up in the economic benefits of being here? You understand the question, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. There are a lot of things that attract people to Nevada and Las Vegas. Obviously, a ton of retirees come here because they're looking to reduce taxes, not shovel snow, things like that. But the average middle America worker, that's kind of an issue. People used to flock here because of all the jobs. But as you're saying, if they can't afford a house and they're stuck renting, well, that kind of becomes less desirable. But the problem is this housing thing is across the country. It's not just Vegas. It's California. I mean, look at Denver, $600,000 for average house in Denver. Holy cow.
Well, don't you think you've been through a lot of these markets? And I mean, what's different between this market?
Are you saying I'm old?
No, I would say you're a few years older, slightly older, but you got more experience. You got a longer,
33?
More years, longer tooth. What is it? What do they call that? Longer on the tooth.
Yeah, I've just got more gray hair.
More gray hair, right?
More hair than
but
you
you've seen these markets. Why do you think this is different though? Like why? And he brought it up. Kit brought it up that it's going to sustain itself. Prices aren't going to go down. Why do you think this is a little different than, let's say, your previous? Because you've experienced, you were going through the trenches on these markets.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we see everything is cyclical. Real estate, gold, the stock market, everything, it comes and goes in cycles. And right now, demand is high in the real estate market. Eventually it's going to have to correct. It just does.
Yeah.
It can't go forever. Now, what will the correction look like? Who knows? It's not going to be the big crash that we saw in 2009, that's for sure. Because all the mortgages they're making today are same.
Would you buy a home in this market right now? I mean, because I'm just going to be upfront. Like, I feel like I said, it's unhealthy. I would have to think second, even if I could put somebody out there that can put 100,000, or let's say you can put down 20%, 25%. Is it a market you want to buy into because you just feel the confidence is there?
Well, okay. So, am I buying a house for my home or as an investment?
I would say for your home, because that's a good question.
So, if it's for my home, if I can afford it, I'll buy it.
Okay.
All right, because a home is a long-term purchase.
Okay.
And it's going to be a 5 or 10 year purchase, and this is going to be a place to raise a family, do those types of things. If it's going to be an investment, you got to think, okay, how long can I hang on to this thing? We got one guy over here who's flipping them in, a couple months, and that's pretty awesome. He rehabs them. There are a lot of people who want to be a landlord, and they're doing that. There are a lot of different ways to do it, but you have to kind of consider, for investment properties, what's the cash flow?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, you nailed it. I was gonna say, you got to have a philosophy for investing in real estate, right? And it depends on what your philosophy is.
Yeah, I had a client in like 2007, 2008, and they'd bought this house and a rental house, and we were talking about it, and like, wait, this is costing you $1,000 a month after rent and all that stuff? Wait a sec.
Yeah.
What made you think this was a good idea? Well, we had to buy a house. We had to buy it because everybody else is buying it. Okay.
Right. Right.
And that didn't work out so hot.
Well, and that's kind of like trying to be specific. So let's say you have two options. I don't know wherever you're from, and you can live in Las Vegas with $100,000 a year salary. Mm-hmm. Average median price here is $410, I think.
Right. Correct? It's about $412.
Okay. What's that?
Gone up again.
$332 there.
Well, that's under a specific criteria, but overall, like if it, over a certain criteria, single family residence, I would say it's right around $411 to $415.
Okay.
Is what the data I was looking at. So.
Gotcha. Okay, so with that, and then maybe that person has the other option. I'm just making up numbers for this because I haven't looked at it, but maybe they could go to northeastern Washington, where the median price is $210,000, but they're making $60,000 a year. You get what I'm saying? So when does it kind of become financially savvy to make? If you're just looking at finances.
Yeah, there's so many different things that are going in there. Financially, the Washington deal is a better deal because you've got less of your income going into your housing. But there's just what's your long-term goals? What are your long-term prospects for jobs in Oregon or in Washington? I mean, they're going to go up 3% a year versus 10% a year in Vegas.
Yeah.
But if you just crunch the numbers, and
if you're just crunching the numbers, the lower percentage of your income that you're putting into that house, the better off you are.
So between $60,000 and $100,000 salary.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the biggest difference.
You want what, like 25% of your income going to monthly income going towards
something
mortgage
around there.
payments?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sometimes you see people say, "Oh, well, you can afford this amount," but yeah, that's really neat. But do you ever want to take a vacation, or maybe you got to buy a car at some point? Don't take the maximum amount that the mortgage company will allow you to take. You got to back off a bit there.
But they make more in fees when you max out your thing. Come on, man.
Yeah.
All the
No, it's-
mortgage guys.
Yeah, I mean that's the truth. I mean everybody's got to make a living, right? So, but going back to the situation, I mean, you don't you feel that this market is starting to shift a little bit? Like there's something going on where I feel like
It
we're
is
starting
shifting.
to we're peaking out.
The amount of money people are paying over list price is decreasing.
Right.
And that's a big tell right there.
Yes.
So that's
But
great
I
to
think
hear.
like if you look at the Blackstones of the world and stuff, and I mean I'll speak for myself. I won't speak for anybody here, but they have economists and they have people that are much smarter than me, right? And they're buying up inventory in multiple markets for the intention of renting them out. Well,
Sure.
you ask yourself, why are they doing that? Well, if people are going to sell their homes over the next year, they're going to become renters, most likely. A lot of them, especially if they're behind on their payments, they're selling for cash, whatever the reason. A lot of the people that sell to me, I'll just use my microcosm of an example, they become renters. They don't go buy another house.
Right.
So what's that going to do to rents? I think one economic report said that rents are going to go up another 20, 30% over the next 3 years. Okay. So they know that they're buying houses with basically house money at the rates that they get. So their payments are super low, and then they know that the rent today is not going to be the rent in 3 years from now. So their cash flow is going to increase every new tenant for the next few years. And so that's like their next mentality. So they almost don't care about the price of today. I sold one to we're in the process of selling one with one of my partners. We're selling one to Open Door, for example.
Yeah.
And
Oh, really? Wow.
they're willing to pay essentially retail for it.
What is Open Door? Can you explain
Open
what
Door
that is?
they're basically a data company that buys homes cash. They're like a big hedge fund.
Okay.
That's where they get their money. So like they're a data company. You fill out their website. They're a competitor, so don't do it. But you put in the address, they give you an instant offer, right? That offer is not always the same offer when they come to the house, but they give you the flashy one, right? If your home's worth $370, they may offer you $380, and you as the seller are like, wow, that is fantastic. I'm going to take this offer because Kit offered me $300. Like, what a joke. And then they get out there and then they have all these fees, and that's how they make their money is in the fees. They're not making their money in the flip, because if you do the math on the flip, they might make $5,000 if they're lucky. So they're making money they're making money in the fees is how they're making it. But they're the flipper. But like companies like that are holding companies, like the big hedge funds like Blackstone, right? They look at the data and they know that there are going to be more renters over the next few years. And that's like their next kind of gold mine of cash flow.
Well, cash flow's king.
It's 100%
It
king.
is. I
And
mean, that's
100%. 100%.
Well, I would never claim to be smarter than a Blackstone economist.
And me neither. I'm an evolved ape.
But I do remember in 2006, 2000, it's going to keep going up. It's going to keep going up. It's going to keep going up. No, it's not. No, it's going to keep going up. It's going to keep. And then, what happened? Lehman Brothers, it's Bear Stearns, Merrill Lynch, because all these economists didn't say it's going to stop going up.
Yeah.
So I'm not
all
claiming
those
I'm not
mortgages
claiming
took
I know
people
it.
up.
Well, no, I know there was a lot more going on there.
Well, they got
And
a lot
I
of equity
And
now,
I
so.
certainly don't think that we're going to see anything
But
like that. That was obscene.
Well,
but everything goes in cycles.
Yeah.
You can't keep going up forever.
Yeah.
There's going to have to be a correction at some point. Things don't go up 25% in a year.
It's unsustainable. You're right.
I
It
know
is
we're in a very
unsustainable.
strange economic climate. A whole lot of weird stuff has happened. They've pumped all kinds of money into the economy. I can't say that you can look at this like under normal economic conditions.
Yeah, but with this,
But there were times when they all said it's going to keep going up, and it didn't. Things crashed terribly. So I'm not claiming I know more than a Blackstone economist, but I can't help but think that,
so you got to wonder
rents
why
might not
why
keep
are
going
they
up.
buying?
Yeah.
They're buying because
Maybe it's more of a long-term investment that they see.
right.
It is.
That's what it sounds like.
They're locking
is,
in a rate.
They're locking in, and they believe
These mortgage rates are so low too.
That's
Right.
what it is.
Well, they're probably just
they're
paying
probably just paying
cash.
cash, but-
They're probably paying cash.
No,
or
I mean,
they
they're probably
leverage
playing-
the portfolio.
They're probably
I'm sure.
leveraging the portfolio.
Yeah, but it's just on a grand scheme. But they're just looking for long-term rental income off of that, and they'll have a portfolio and say, hey, we're generating 8% income on that. And it's like, wow,
Yeah, as long as you're bringing a profit.
that's not a bad deal.
Is that the number that you're looking for? So we can kind of segue into talking to you, right, about what's going on with flips. And this is kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about, nuts and bolts of this show, really. we're going to kind of go into other things. But looking at your returns, like where do you start out on, okay, this is a home run versus, I don't know if I want to touch this. Where does those returns start out at?
So it's all based on the risk. I call it risk probability of the house, where it's located, how much the renovations are, and so on and so forth. But on average, if you look at everything that we buy, we want to make somewhere between 8 to 10% as a minimum on the house. So
Sure.
if it sells for $200,000, I want to make $20,000 on a minimum. That's after everything's paid: realtor fees, commissions, transfer tax, Clark County, everything, financing fees. I want to make at least that minimum. That's kind of like my threshold.
Yeah, guys, if you guys are just tuning in, this is the French Workbench podcast. Please hit that like button. Also, if you guys have any comments, please go ahead and ask some questions. This is Kit Carson. He's a flipper.
The Kit Carson.
Go
back to the beginning of the show.
They named the Kit Carson trail after him.
Kit Carson. The Kit Carson. He's I guess he's explain what happened. I mean, just real quick, you guys were talking about something when we started the show. You're related to somebody that's
I'm fifth generation to Kit Carson.
Go back to the Oregon Trail. I think
what is
the Santa Fe Trail?
He's in the Oregon Trail gang.
Okay.
His family.
Okay.
They're named after it.
So died of dysentery.
We all played Oregon Trail, right?
Oh.
So
Really? So I mean, you would have to be from Oregon to know that, though, right?
You never played Oregon Trail?
Just like
I'm just trying to say the significance of this.
No, it's big, and I don't take it lightly. I mean,
No,
what
it's
I do
big.
what I do every day is because I want to honor my own legacy and my own family, And,
Yeah.
And that's why when I was telling you the story about how I got into real estate, it was because I felt like I wasn't making enough money, and the opportunity came up, and I felt like if somebody was willing to saddle a horse at 15 in Kentucky and move west just because he didn't like being an apprentice to a saddle maker,
Yeah.
I think I can go buy a house at a discount and try and flip
That's
it.
some inspiration.
It really is. If you really think about it, I mean, the Wild West was the Wild West.
Yeah.
Like, it was either eat or be eaten.
I think my great grandpa was in the mafia, so your story is a lot little.
Oh, that's cool, man.
I don't know for sure.
Oh,
It
just
probably was.
speculation.
Just claim it. Just claim it.
A bunch of Italians owning a vineyard in Northern California and had the suits. Look at the pictures.
Sounds about right.
Anyhow,
Pictures.
so back to what you're saying about the you were saying you're making what 20,000 is your threshold, right?
Well, no, 8 to 10%. So depending on
Right.
depending on the sales price. But some areas are different, right? Summerlin, for example, you'll make less because you'll sell it for a little bit higher price point,
Right.
and it'll sell in a day.
So you've been in this 5 years. You don't mind me asking, like,
Yeah.
what percentage you take losses, or how many flips have you done?
I am the proud person that hasn't lost yet on a house.
Have you been close? Have you like, I got
have
into
been close.
Yeah.
Manufactured housing, I learned a very valuable lesson.
Don't.
I don't claim to be an expert in it, but I do. They're kind of my bread and butter.
What happened during that situation?
Well, so in manufactured housing, if nobody understands the financing of them, if they've been moved, they can't get a loan, right? They can't get a
Really?
conventional
Right.
loan. They can't
Wow,
get an FHA
okay.
loan. Yeah, so if like you own a 1995 trailer and it was in Delaware, and then you moved it to Las Vegas, and then you try and sell it, it can't get a loan because it's been moved. Even if it's converted to real property, it still can't really get a loan. There's some like credit unions and things that
Right.
might do it, but it's a very small buyer pool.
Wow.
Which dramatically decreases its value. So if it can get a loan, if it was originally there in 1995 and then you try and sell it today, it might sell for, in Pahrump, for example, because this happens all the time in Pahrump.
Sure.
It might sell for 180,000. If it's been moved, it's now worth maybe 70,000. It's worth considerably less because somebody has to buy it cash.
Okay.
So I bought this one in Pahrump, and I originally thought it was worth about 180 after it was fixed up. I bought it from a wholesaler, so it happened real quick because the wholesaler calls you and they're like, "Hey man, I'm throwing it to you first, just to give you a bone or whatever. You got to tell me in like the next hour," because that's just how wholesalers think. They just
Yeah.
don't. They're annoying.
Car
like that.
salesman, right?
They're car sales, yeah, because they're making their fee. So I'm like, okay. So I quickly look, and I didn't do the full due diligence because he was a realtor friend of mine, and so I thought that I could trust his opinion on it. And I bought it, closed on it, and then we were like, "Hey, it's been moved," and so I paid I think 110 for it.
Yeah.
And I knew the rehab was going to cost probably 25, maybe 28. Needed a new roof, so I was unsure how much it was going to all settle out.
What year was this?
This was like last year.
Last year.
Yeah, it was very recent that we just
Wow.
bought this, and so I started kind of like, well, shit, all right, we'll just do the bare minimum of the rehab, spray the cabinets, just do whatever we got to do to get it done, make it just ready, and we actually got lucky, and it somehow took a VA loan, and they ended up selling it for, it didn't sell for 180, it sold for less, but we still made money on it.
Wow.
Slightly made money. So you're going through the process and you're like, well, you got to factor in all the materials. You got to factor in all the costs to get this house up and running. How does that number, I mean, obviously with these prices going up, the materials, the wood, all these things, let's say you got anything that the costs that come into this, is it a long-term process or a pretty hard process, I guess, to find out if this is going to give you a return that you want? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say when I first started, it would take me probably a few hours to figure out what the house was going to be worth and all the numbers.
Really?
Oh yeah, I would stare at the comps, I'd stare at the pictures, and I'd be like, okay, just to try and understand value is hard in itself. If you're a new realtor, for example, and you go pull up the MLS, you don't know what you're looking at.
No.
An appraiser that's been an appraiser for 20 years can do something in 15 minutes, right? But that comes with doing it more often.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I had to
learn
get to.
behavior.
Yeah, so I can now look at a property and turn around an offer relatively quickly, like within an hour. But when I first started, it would take me hours to figure it out.
Take you a while, right?
Well, and I would still have to bounce it off somebody. I'd call one of my partners and be like, hey, what do you think this is worth? Am I right? And that's really the delay. Is that?
Yeah. So you started mastering your craft or what? But
yeah,
that's pretty impressive. I mean, not taking a loss on anything. I think that's way.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
I know it's coming. I have partners that are like, yeah, some of the big players, for example, they play the 80-20 rule. 20% they'll lose on, 80% they'll make on.
So they're going in like what volume?
Oh yeah, those guys are volume. They're buying like 1,000 homes across the country.
We're talking hedge hunting, like big investors, right?
Big investors,
not small mom
not
and
small
pop.
mom and pop. Mom and pop guys. I mean, you can guard yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a construction background, or even if you learn like just the simple things in construction, like how much paint costs, labor costs, things like that, it's easier to safeguard against the deal for sure.
So going through the process, you got a lot of people that are in the trenches, we always say, are involved in this process. And let's say that it's a little bit emotional sometimes. Is it for somebody that's going in business with you as far as trying to sell their house? Right? I mean, they sometimes the returns that they're looking at is not the same that they thought it would be. Does that happen a
Like
lot?
when they want to sell it at a discount, you mean?
Right.
Yeah, no, I get it all the time, especially because the market's up. Pre-pandemic, it was easier to have that conversation with the seller, but now it's, oh, well, Betty's house down the street sold for $480. I don't understand why my house is only worth $250. And it's like, okay, I'm constantly explaining how appraisers think.
They have a pool.
They have a pool. They have an extra bedroom. They have this.
Sucks.
But it's hyper emotional, and especially when they need repairs and they just don't understand
You
it.
have shag carpeting.
Yeah.
Both of your air conditioning units don't work.
My favorite line is, hey, this is a 1970s home and it looks 1975 in here.
Right.
And you want to sell it for a 2021 price. I just, let's keep this in mind.
So buyers have unrealistic expectation, I think, as far as listing their home because of what they're seing, or sellers, excuse me.
Sellers in this market, 100%.
Right, 100%, right?
100%.
So going through the process with this, and do you have some stories that people have recently gone through that you can say, well, they weren't really happy about the situation, and it's like a learning lesson for the next one? Because I think a lot of people, they go into and they're like, well, I didn't get what I wanted. Are they really happy at the what I've done for them? I don't know.
Like if I buy it from them, do they have like seller's remorse?
Yeah, like kind of like, should I have done it a different way? I guess, was this the best way to do it? Now they're like, well, now I'm kicking myself for doing it this way.
Well, so that's why I take a different approach than a lot of my competitors. A lot of the competitors out there, for the lack of better words, are kind of scumbags. They want to buy it for as low as they can. A lot of them are wholesalers, so they're like, I need to buy it as low as I can so that I can sell it to the next guy and make a larger margin. I just take the approach of course, I want to buy it for as cheap as I can. I'm not going to lie. And I disclose that to sellers. Sometimes I'm very upfront with them, and I say, hey, I'm in this to make money. My intention is to buy your home, renovate it, sell it, and make a profit. That is my intention to be here right now.
So we got a question here that just popped up.
Yeah.
What type of property do you suggest for someone who wants to get into flipping, like condos?
Oh, fantastic question. That's such a good question. So anything built 1940s and after, because if it's built pre-1940s, there are things that you just aren't going to know.
How many houses are pre-1940s in
A lot more
Las
than you
Vegas?
think. A lot more
Really?
than you think.
Really?
Where? Downtown or where?
Yeah, just outside of downtown.
That's awesome. Actually, I
just
know.
put one in contract that's a 1952, which is not pre-1940, but even the 50s homes in Vegas, they're built. They're just built differently, right? So the piping's different, so there's always a plumbing concern.
My
wiring
office
concern.
is a 1955 house on Decatur.
Yeah.
And we opened up the walls. We did some expansion. There was absolutely no insulation.
Yeah.
Just originally came with single pane windows, all that fun stuff.
The windows, yeah. So,
But you're saying pre-1940.
my recommendation is don't buy anything pre-1940.
Okay, so we're talking 1930s.
Like don't buy
Asbestos.
anything. Yeah, just walk away. It might look cheap on paper. Like if you like a lot of people in Las Vegas like to buy out-of-state properties, for example, like in the Midwest and things, because they see a price, they can buy a house for $7,000. And they're like, oh my god, I buy this house for $7,000. Then
You can buy houses for less than that in Detroit.
But they're not thinking through the rehab. So I think the point of saying that is you got to think about your next step. And not be so excited about the price.
And I'll make a point too. If you're talking about older houses, as an attorney, and probably Rich, you probably weigh on this too. But you buying something older, and usually the city allows it to stay as is. Not always the case, but as soon as you want to do any sort of renovation or expansion, they're going to make you just apply for all these permits, and basically you're redoing the whole house at that point. For a house that old.
It depends. So. Like ADU units are a good example of that. Accessory dwelling units, meaning like a back unit, like a casita.
Right.
Like maybe it wasn't permitted. I run into this all the time. I'll be negotiating with the seller, and they're like, "But I have this unit in the back." And I'm like, "Yeah, but Uncle Joe built it, and no one knows if it's structurally sound, and the city might know it's there because the previous listing said it was in the listing." But it's not permitted, so it doesn't really bring value.
And as soon as you start messing with it, the city's going to.
And then they're going to come out and they're going to want to inspect it. So you're exactly right, and that happens with a lot of the older homes. Especially in Henderson, like those older homes by Water Street, great example. They are built like 50s, give or take, right? And they have those issues. They have flat roofs. Flat roofs. A lot of the new homes don't have flat roofs. Well, yeah, unless you know flat roofs, right? And I used to sell foam roofs in a previous life, but they're just shit. They're terrible.
Yeah.
They're terrible. Can we cuss on this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. They're
It's
shit.
too late, but it's okay. I'm just.
I was gonna say. You said it was live, so here we are. But they just aren't as good, right? So you got to know those things. I think the other example is have your financing in place before you try and negotiate with the seller. Don't just.
Yeah. So I mean, do condos work better for someone starting, or townhomes, or?
I would stick with single family on your first one.
Single family.
Condos.
Would you think, does the HOA really present a problem too with some of this stuff? Yeah,
it does. It's a factor that you have to add in.
Yeah.
Where in a single family you don't have to.
Perfect for me to deal with that.
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you a question about your purchase contracts. So,
okay.
Just because outside of the realtor in the attorney box, having reviewed some purchase contracts especially over the last several months to iBuyers and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you give your sellers any kind of like out clause or like I'll let you out, but for 1% of the agreed upon price?
Fantastic question.
What's your...
No. My contracts are tight.
Okay.
They do not really give the seller an out.
Who writes your contracts, by the way?
Say that again?
Who writes your contracts, by the way?
I had an attorney do it for me years ago, yeah. And then they edit it every year to make sure that it's up to date.
If it needs an update, me and Rich will arm wrestle over it.
Copy that. Copy that. No, I get that a lot. However, I will say that, Rich, I mean, if a seller calls me a few days after signing it and they have massive seller's remorse and they're like, hey, I just don't want to sell the house. It's rare that I'm like, hey, I'm going to sue you and you have to sell the house. I think that's bad business. I really do. Now, if they cause trouble like the day before closing, yeah, I'm leaving the house. I'm leaving the house and I'm probably forcing them to sell it because that's silly. Yeah. I've already got financing in place. I've already inspected it. I mean, we're buying the house.
You spent money.
I've spent money at that point, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
you're into it. So when you go back to the returns, so is there, I know you said there's a set margin for you. What about the company you work for or other investors out there? Do they have, because I feel like 8%'s pretty low, isn't it? Like a return. I know you brought it up, Mike, that getting those 8% returns, but isn't that low for a flipped home?
No, I think it's based on your risk tolerance. I think if you're willing to take something down for that 8% margin, you should do it all day long. I think if you don't have the appetite for it and you're unwilling to make that type of return, then don't do it.
Is that the bottom, 8%?
For me, yeah, that's my bottom. That's my, it's rare that and if I do go that low or even creep into the 7% realm, it better be I'm going in there and doing carpet and paint and I'm throwing it on the market. Like that's how little I have to do.
So I guess it's like this. If I'm going to flip a home, right, would you get a bigger return on an older home? I mean, obviously each home's different. Mm-hmm. Do you on average, do you get a better return on older homes? Or obviously if you have newer homes, there's not much to flip. Like you might just go in and change the carpet, like you said, or the paint or something. So why would you not want to stay away from even the 1940s, maybe even to the 1960s? I mean, they probably need more work, right?
Yeah, I would say I get a bigger return the more work that needs to be done to the house.
Really?
And the reason being is that seller usually recognizes the amount of work that needs to be put into it, so I buy it a little lower. That's usually how that works.
Mike, Cece's got a couple of questions. Can you read those off?
Yeah. So she's saying the older the house, the more money you have to put into it. And that's exactly what you're saying. You have to upgrade appliances and, you know, you may have to bring things up to code, put some GFCIs in there and, you know, things like that. That's always a big challenge. So, you know, it does seem like newer houses are a little bit safer, a lot quicker, but, you know, if you're willing to put the money in, you know, why not?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's all about the turnaround time. It's about how much work needs to be done to it and the price point.
Yeah. I've had a lot of older clients who've been selling their houses, and you know they're original owner of this 1960 something house, and you go in and it's green shag carpeting, and one of them gave me
smells old.
One of them gave me their record collection, and in there was the All in the Family sing along. And I was like, oh my gosh, All in the Family, I got to have that. But anyways, it's just, you know, she knew that this thing needed so much work. Because she's lived there, and she goes into other people's houses, her daughter's house, things like that, and it's like, you know, granite countertops and this, and they got, you know, whatever was before Formica. So I think a lot of people understand what you're saying, that yeah, it's just not up to date, and somebody who's buying today wants something more modern.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Carson, go on Mike's comment and the listener's comment. So you've been in business for a few years. Do you buy all your houses through traditional escrow, or are you looking at, you know, lien foreclosures, bank foreclosures? Do you ever acquire the real estate in a different method than traditional?
I buy everything through kind of a title company.
Okay.
It's rare that I'll buy, just because the amount of competition's out there from buying like foreclosures from banks. I don't even dabble in it, to be honest. Okay. Yeah, so most of my buys are directly from a seller, and we use a title company to do the whole transaction.
So you're and that's an interesting point, because that just shows kind of how strong the market is, because I think a lot of flippers in the past really looked for those off the traditional path means of acquiring real estate.
Oh, it is off the traditional path. Like, there's no realtors involved usually. Like,
but you're still going through title company. You're still going through. You don't get that benefit from doing a bank foreclosure, for instance. Basically, you bid, take as is.
Yep.
And it seems like you're not forced into that pigeonhole, which I think a lot of flippers, especially after the crash a decade ago, were. So, in that essence, does that mean, like, you know, the real estate market from a seller's perspective is pretty healthy?
It is incredibly competitive. I could tell you this. It's rare that I am the only cash buyer that went to the house. Super rare. I'm usually the fourth or fifth person, you know, and it's like the data companies came through, right? The open door people, those jerks. And then it's like the casual wholesaler that watched one YouTube video and thinks he's a wholesaler and sent out a little pamphlet that like, hey, I'm going to buy your house for cash. And then they fool the seller into thinking that they're actually buying the house, and they're not. And so by the time I get there, I try to not be the first, right? Because I've been doing it a while, so I could at least walk the seller through things to watch for and ask good questions when the next guy comes, kind of thing. But there's just so much competition. I mean,
to get these houses,
get the houses,
yeah, because you're on both sides of the coin every day. I didn't really think about that. You're buying and selling, so you have the advantage and the disadvantage. Yeah. I was like, Rich, did you have something?
I did want to ask just how many distressed homeowners come to you to sell a property, because I figured that obviously the quick sale would be great for the distressed homeowner who does have equity, but
so I think there's a sales tactic too. There's agents, and that's a good question you got there, Rich, because a lot of realtors, they come out and they're like, hey, I'll give you cash money for your distressed properties. Explain what that is. That's a good question there, Rich.
Well, so I guess we got to define distress. Do you mean just like they're behind on their mortgage?
They've got a notice of trustee sale
okay.
a few weeks away, or maybe they just got their notice of default, but they're behind on their mortgage. Foreclosure proceedings have begun, and they're somewhere between. And maybe they don't think that there's a realistic way for them to catch up.
Which happens. That's definitely
call
a segment
call
of the
me and
population.
Rich first,
Say that again?
because I was gonna say, Rich, kind of see what you're saying. If somebody's in that situation, and you're trying to buy, right? And they're worried about getting foreclosed on. Look, I've got weapons up in a closet that I can throw to stall the foreclosure enough to get the sale so everybody's happy. So if you are in a panic situation, like literally call someone like me or Rich or somebody like that. I mean, I'm serious.
Call Joe, because I don't do that. For
Yeah. I mean, for instance, there's a way. Just one example is that if a bank goes to foreclose, they made foreclosures laws a lot more strict in the last 10 years. And you have, for instance, a right to mediation and a right to ask it for again if you were doing that. Simply by making that request, even if you're 2 days from foreclosure, they've got to give that to you. That schedules it out at least 3 months to even get a mediator in to handle this law. So in the meantime, you use that as a diversion tactic, right? If you're trying to sell, you can buy, then it solves the whole problem.
Yeah, so a good rule of thumb for cash buy. Sorry, do you?
No, I was saying don't try to like play too many games because you don't want to ruin your credit and that sort of
100%.
thing. But you can do things to get you out of the situation that you may be pressured,
100%.
especially in this market. No one should be getting foreclosed on.
I agree with that.
Period.
I agree with that, and I think a lot of the sellers that are in those situations, some of them just don't know, and it's a lot of the banks, because there's such high equity. I feel like, it's just my opinion because I haven't read this or talked to anybody in the banking industry, but it's like in their best interest to foreclose it and then sell it, right? Because then they're going to not only make that mortgage payment, but then they're going to sell it high, presumably. And so I'll
correct, but they still can't get around the law that stalls it.
No,
Right.
but my point to saying that is like the seller doesn't understand that that's in their best interest. So oftentimes I get this all the time. They'll be like, well, I called the bank representative and he said that like I could do this and that, but like I don't really know what to do. And I feel like it's because the bank is kind of being vague about it, and almost because they want it to foreclose.
Could be. It would be very different than it was 6 years ago when they didn't want to. But
Yeah, I don't know if they still want to foreclose because of the process. And also, too, I mean, if they wanted to foreclose, they wouldn't provide all these programs that's out there for people to take advantage of, even including extending the loan term.
They're legally mandated to provide those programs.
And Joe, let me ask you a question, because I haven't seen these in a while. So the office I worked in, we did do a lot of short sales and foreclosure mediations and loan modifications, many years ago. But I wasn't really aware if the foreclosure mediation program was still in effect. Is that something that
And that was just one example. It's still in effect.
Okay.
But there's other things you can do. I mean, they're legal. I mean, for instance, let's say you did do the mediation program and didn't work, and so they've got all their boxes checked and ready to go. Here's a little trick. What you could do is form an LLC or have somebody else form it. You do a quit claim deed, record it in the office where you're forming an LLC, right? And now the bank has to give notice to that LLC, even though you own it, that they're foreclosing, which restarts the foreclosure process. And in the meantime, I could go to court and get a temporary restraining order stopping them from doing it. Now, again, I don't like playing games with even banks, when they're trying to do it. But if you're looking at a situation like you're talking about, Kit, where you just need to buy it, they don't know what to do, that'll give them plenty of time to actually sell the asset. And then they can go back to the bank and be like, hey, it's covered, and the bank's happy. But if you're feeling that pressure cooker, what I'm saying is in the market, no one, unless you've like died, should go through a foreclosure process because the market's so hot, right? That was different 10 years ago when it was less and the banks were not foreclosing.
Right.
You didn't, but now it's different.
Yeah.
So
you'll be able to sell your own house very quickly.
you can get it. You can make money. Do not let it foreclose. You won't see a dime of that money back. That's just what
I tell every seller that's in that situation. I say, look, you have equity. Use the house as an asset. Get out of the debt. Sell the house. And
I mean, frankly, it's probably hard on them, so they've probably been ignoring it.
Usually, it's hyper emotional, especially like if it's an HOA foreclosure or something. It's like they just sit there and they're kind of like, they're usually drained. A lot of them are, and they don't know this stuff.
And I really empathize with people who do that. But look, I mean, you call somebody like me, Rich, Mike, or somebody, or Dan, and like our business is helping people, right?
Right.
So I can provide that. Don't be afraid to do that. And
Absolutely.
then you can get on with your life. So,
I agree with that. Sell it if you can sell it, because then you can pocket the money. In my opinion, I mean,
is Las Vegas a good place to flip a home right now? Like, I know there's some deals But I think what people want to know is where's there's other places in Vegas. It's not all about Las
definitely
Vegas.
a seller's market.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't it be?
It's hard to get a deal.
It's hard to get a deal,
It's
even
hard.
if you're going outside of Las Vegas.
Oh, well, no, I'm just talking Las Vegas. Las Vegas is hard to get a deal. Well, and a lot of markets it's hard to get a deal. I have friends that buy houses in Spokane, for example. They're experiencing the exact same thing we are. Their market is just going up, up, and up, and there's not very many sellers, which means there's low inventory. And the market that's under the retail market, so that wholesale market, it goes with the normal retail market. So if there's high inventory in the retail market, then there's high inventory of wholesale houses. It's right now there's low inventory in the retail market, which means there's low inventory in the wholesale market.
It comes down to supply and demand, right? I mean, so you get a lot of these buyers out there, and they're looking in, and they're like, you know what? Maybe they're being pushed into this market because they're scared that they might not get that opportunity, especially of how fast things are going up. I think some people might not even be ready to buy, and they're just saying, you know what? If we don't do it now, and we try to do it later, we're not going to have a shot.
Well, yeah, because they're thinking they're going to lock in that rate too, and they're nervous that rate's going to go up, but the housing price is still going to go up too. And it's like, well, if that's the situation, then why not just buy right now? And then if we're going to live in it for 10 years, statistically, right? Well, Matt, who cares? But then, and that's how they should be thinking. But I think not all of them are thinking that way.
Well, hey, Cece's got a point. She says a lot of people want open floor plans. Are you tearing down walls and doing that stuff? Or
my business model is to take a home, regardless of the year. So say I buy it in 1985 home, right? Mm-hmm. My goal is to bring it to a 2021 standard.
Okay.
So most of the time, no, I'm not knocking down walls. Most of the time, I am just doing things to make it that 2021 standard. Countertops, paint, flooring, windows, a roof, a water heater. Those main kind of items that a 2021 buyer is going to want to see as a turnkey house.
Do you do tankless hot water heaters?
No.
Why not?
Expensive.
Okay.
Yeah. So really, that's the business model of flipping. Is if you want to do it on a scale, you have to think that way. Because if you walk into a home and maybe you've watched HGTV too many times, right? and you think
it looks so easy,
and they do a good job. They do.
Oh, they're beautiful.
I think like if you're standing there and you're like, well, I wonder if this wall was down and this and that. Now you're including engineers, the general contractor. They got to do the schematics.
Is that a load-bearing wall?
Is it? They got to get all that checked. So I would only do it if it's a high-end home. So if you're buying a home for maybe $600,000, your goal is to sell it for 1.2. Then get the engineer in there. Spend the $400,000 in the preparing.
Do you do those kind of flips?
I don't. I did one, and it's kind of out of my wheelhouse. Yeah. I'll look at them because my contractor can do it, but it's not quite my bread and butter.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it just seems like it's you look at the cost, and I keep thinking about this, and you're like, I just thought about that. That situation where you're trying to save money on all the materials and things. It's someone like a builder. Like a builder has all these costs. Are you passing? I'm not going to kind of throw you out there on the spot, but is a lot of it where you're like, hey, I got to pass some of these costs to the buyer and kind of make that where it will work because I can't just lose money. And that's part of the process, right? It's part of the problem is these costs are so high right now to build these homes and the materials. It's kind of hard, right? To kind of put all that together and try to balance that and still make enough profit, right?
Yeah, it's 100% passed on the buyer. It really is. I mean, if you think about a house that you buy, you renovate it, and then when we were talking earlier about like if I buy something, I call it skinny, where I'm going to make maybe a 6% margin. My hope is that by the time I go to list that home 2 months later, is that it has appreciated $5,000 to $10,000, so that my margin increases, and that appreciation is totally just the pass through onto the buyer. Most of it though is due to the comps, right? The nearby homes that have sold. So is it really due to? It's a cause and effect, right? It is due to my material costs growing because that's what caused the house down the street to sell for more. However, did I do it on purpose? Not necessarily. The economics of the neighborhood did.
Yeah. So we're gonna go in. We're going to go in a different direction here. I'm going to talk with Mike today, and I'm also going to talk over here to Rich. And I want to talk with Mike first. And Mike, you have a lot of things going on in the world. We look at the extension that's going on with the student loans, and how the cost of going to college and all these things. We talk about inflation. So kind of give us an insight about maybe what somebody can do out there to kind of give them an idea of like saving money on the side for maybe your family or your kids or something.
Oh, somebody just had a new kid, huh?
Yeah.
I put money into a college savings plan, a 529 college savings plan when my kids were born. And, holy cow, when my son was ready to go to UNR, there was the cash.
The University of Nevada.
Yes.
The only university.
That's what he reminds me of, yes.
The other one is a junior college.
They got a great hospitality program.
Right.
Anyhow, not to offend our viewers.
So it was really cool that we did not have to borrow any money to pay for his college education.
Do people like jump online and they're like, you know what, I don't need somebody. It's almost like having a trainer.
Yeah.
A lot of people go to the gym and they're like, I don't need a trainer. I know what I'm supposed to do. But it just seems like they don't get the results unless there is a trainer. Is it similar to what you're talking about when you're talking about financial planning?
I think so, because I think of myself as a financial coach, and I'm pushing people. Okay, you were doing $50 a month into this last year. Can we do 60, 75? Come on, let's do a little bit more. And if you look at all the sports stars, they've all got coaches. Tiger Woods has a coach.
Oh, right. How many people that are in sports that are these people that are making millions of dollars?
Yeah.
They get out of it and they don't have anything to look at. Like as far as their bank account, there's nothing there, right? Or like their
Mike
net
Tyson.
worth. Yeah, their net worth was like 30 million.
Yeah.
And now they're worth like 500,000, and they got a bunch of debt. They got 10 kids.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. There are so many of these stars. Michael Jackson was broke when he died. Holy cow!
And Mike, to your point, I mean, frankly, what I've learned in life, if I could afford it, I'd have a coach for every aspect of my life, from running my business, from finances to like even personal relationships. And finance is one of the most critical things, that you need to get in your order.
And unfortunately, you don't learn this stuff in high school.
I was just thinking that.
Right?
I was like, oh, man, as soon as I get to interject, I'm literally going to say that our education system literally doesn't teach any of that.
Well, what really frustrates me, my wife has a PhD in education, and she was selected to be on the committee that set the social studies standards for the state of Nevada. Well, when she got this, I said, awesome, honey. Let's get some more financial planning back into the classroom. And she just kind of said, yeah, it's already on the curriculum, but the reason it's not being taught is because the standardized test does not include it. And all the schools are teaching for that standardized test.
That's so terrible.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Pythagorean theorem, hey, it's nice to know. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. That's kind of neat. But is it as important as understanding interest? When it works for you, when it works against you, right? How to evaluate, should I take these student loans? Right? Kids are borrowing hundreds of thousands of dollars that they'll never be able to pay back.
No. At 18. I mean, what do you know when you're 18?
Nothing.
Like, you don't know anything.
I thought I knew the world, but I was an idiot.
Don't you think that sometimes, though, like, they think they're doing the right thing just because of inexperience? Maybe they did it.
Well, everybody's
taught
taught you need to go to college, but guess what? Not everybody does. I've got a client who's
but you don't have to really. I mean, you can make it not going to college today because there's so many other avenues.
There are so many other things you can do. I've got a client whose son went to welding school. Okay, and they use that college savings plan. It can be used for any accredited school, like a massage therapy, beauty school, whatever.
Right.
It doesn't have to be college. And that's the cool thing about it. And so they've been using that money for his welding tuition. Oh my gosh, this guy stopped going to school because he's making so much money working. And his parents are like, come on, just finish the class.
I think school's like, you don't know where you're at. You don't know what you want to do. Maybe you don't understand like where you're going to end up. Well, at least you're not wasting your time, right? I mean, that might be the situation.
And that's fine, but don't take out a boatload of money to do this.
Right.
The neat thing about the way college is set up is you take all these courses and these different things. And, holy cow, I really didn't know a whole lot about economics. And I took a microeconomics class, and it was like, I aced it. I thought, oh, this is kind of fun. I like this.
Yeah.
And, that just kind of started me down a different path than I thought I was going to do.
Well,
but you can do this in the community colleges.
Well,
and that's cheap.
Let me kind of, with you as a financial consultant, I think a lot of people that consider like hiring one or something like that, I think finance is very personal in our society, and I think there's probably a lot of people that have intimidation of talking to you. So, do you work with people of all kind of income levels, or what's kind of your thing?
I mean, I've got the multi-million-dollar clients, and then a lot of them bring their kids to me. Hey, can you help him open up his Roth IRA? He got his first job, and he's putting in $50 a month. Somebody's got to help these people. And that's what I like to do.
So
I don't market for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd go broke doing that. But I'll help these people if they're willing to put money away every month.
Yeah.
If you come to me and say, "Hey, I want to put $500 in a mutual fund," that's it. Like, I'm not. That's not for me.
These guys. I mean, you're an attorney. I know you went to college, right? You went to college.
The University of Nevada.
The University of Nevada.
Go Pack.
But I don't think it's like if you're going for something like that where you have you're not going to get that education going for an attorney or something like that where you might have to go into getting a student loan. Now, I know they're outrageous.
There are some fields that it makes sense for. I mean, if you're going for a law degree, yeah, why not? I mean, you can.
But be methodical and like your plan if you can.
Yes, but
certainly.
But there are things that I wish I had known before I started.
Absolutely.
After I got into a lesser ranked school that offered me a huge scholarship, and I didn't go to it because I thought it was more important to go to the better ranked school. But when I got out of school, I was not able to start working right away. It took me several years. And in that time, my interest started building up. And now I'm at a point where I'm in a debt cycle and my interest is more than I can pay in a year. And so my student loan debt is spiraling out of control. It's going to hit, well, I don't even want to say because it's obscene. And my only hope is that it will discharge when I'm 55.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Now that's not to say that, I mean, they make it nice and easy for you to make your monthly payments. That's not the problem. But the fact is that out
you always
there,
have that monkey
I've
on
got
your
this
back.
enormous debt that sits on the side of my credit report. And I wish I had known a few things differently. And I wish I had even thought about the fact that, it's that my school doubled tuition the year before I started. And it was a state school. And that I wish someone had said to me, take the scholarship. Don't rack up $200,000.
Yeah, I had a client who did that. Yeah, her dad was a teacher, and she wanted to get a law degree, and she wanted to go to Stanford. And he says, "That's great. You're paying it for yourself. I'll help you pay for UNLV." And she ended up going to UNLV and graduated with a lot less debt. I mean, a Stanford law degree, that's an amazing degree, but it comes with an amazing price. So you're exactly right. And, do it as cheap as you can.
I mean, I ran into some issues. Not everyone does that, but I'm just saying that life does not always go according to plan, and that student debt can be a major. It can be a real monkey on people's back these days.
Well, and you can't discharge every other debt you can file for bankruptcy.
We are treated the same as people who don't pay for their children, or as someone who kills someone driving drunk. That's how you're treated if you have education debt.
I think the thing is you go to these better schools like the Stanfords. There, you get a better education, quote unquote, right? And the thing is, now they can charge that premium.
The same stuff.
That's what I'm saying.
But see, that's not. It's not. This as an attorney, I can say this. Look, back in the day, it probably made a big difference, but now everything's completely standardized. The curriculum's identical,
right? And
you can go to a lower tier school and still have number ones from Yale be professors. So really, where it comes into is like there is an advantage because if you want to get into a super nice law firm. These guys buy their own myth.
They push the fact that if you go to these schools, you got a better shot of getting that great job or that CEO position. I think that's
in
what
some
I
situations
think you get the first job. I really do. But once your resume gets filled out, that's what sells you.
Yeah, because if you're going to join a firm in New York City and they all Harvard grads, they have this policy hiring Harvard grads.
Right.
But as far as your ability as an attorney, that has nothing to do with it. It's just what do you call it? Prestige, high society crap.
It's prestige.
And if you want to come back to Las Vegas, the best thing to do is work hard at Boyd and get the best job at the best firm in Las Vegas.
Yeah, you go to Vegas.
You don't need to go to.
They're hiring from Vegas. Yeah. That's their community.
Right.
It's this club thing, but really has nothing to do with your trade. It's nonsense.
But if your kids are just trying to figure out what they want to do in life, go to the community college. Holy cow, it's cheap. And I mean, you can take
in fact,
classes.
it's going to be free soon, from what I hear.
I don't believe it should be, but I mean, community college is really affordable today, and I think that you can go explore and do different things, and really figure out what floats your boat.
What other things do you encompass? Obviously, your business is about financial planning. What other things do you do, Mike? I mean, because look, people they need direction. I think self-leadership's important in anything that you do. If you can't do that, if you don't have it in some field, a lot of people don't have it in finances. They just don't. They don't go to college for it, and they're broke.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I work with so many people, and just okay. This is how you're going to do these things. We're talking about ways of reducing taxes in retirement or planning for retirement. How are we going to save up enough money so you can actually retire? Things like that. Yeah. Or sometimes people have a goal. I want to buy a vacation house in 10 years. Okay.
Right.
Let's work on that. And this is how you do it. I had somebody who came in and they said, well, I think I want to retire in 10 years. And I said, well, that's great. How have you worked this out? Well, I saw this on TV and it sounds like a great idea. Okay, but let's get realistic. Okay, you earn this amount of money, you can save this amount. Well, this is how much it'll grow to in 10 years. Can you live on $5,000 a year? Sometimes it's reality here that we're bringing to people.
So we're gonna, Mike. I think you brought a lot of good information. Also, too, at the end of the show, we're gonna.
Oh, and Robert says open a Roth.
Yeah. I want to bring
everybody
something
who gets their first jobs, open a Roth IRA. Right. Holy cow, best deal ever.
Open a Roth. But one of the things is he said it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. Running at altitude. That's another good point. I think Vegas is notorious
running at altitude agrees.
Yeah.
Roth IRA.
Roth IRA. Yeah. But I mean, isn't that kind of one of the things we're looking at now? It's. I mean, that's what Vegas is about. It's about who you know. I think to a point. Is it really coming down to really education background and what your credentials are in that? I mean, it does for maybe certain jobs, but overall, is it just it's just really a foot in the door. Everybody always says that. So going back to colleges. So, I don't know. Is it overrated, I guess?
The first job out of college is always the hardest to get.
Right.
And, I mean, do you guys agree?
I went into sales, so it was almost like, okay, are you
selling the foam roofs, right?
Yeah, I was like, are you? Well, in politics was also sales.
Oh yeah,
it's like if you could sell yourself, you're gonna get the job, right? But they don't teach that in college. It's hard to, like in your humanities studies, like no one's teaching you how to like read body language and understand if you're gonna close a deal or not. And a lot of that's intuitive.
It's out there.
Yeah,
a lot of it's intuitive. So that first job out of college, I mean, I will say this: I have an economics degree, and it's helped me tremendously with being able to read. Data and understand how to interpret it. It's because a lot of my business is data driven. So I appreciate that background. However, I will say
it's not used a lot.
It's not used a lot.
Right.
And what you said about, or maybe somebody on there said it, about who you know, right?
Yeah.
My mentor, I consider him a mentor of mine. And he jokes with me that he only went to the University of Phoenix online. and it's like a business administration deal, right? But what people don't know is he's bought well over 1,000 homes in the last decade, and he is worth more money than I could count.
Because he actually utilizes what he was taught versus checking a box.
He knows what he's doing, and a lot of it was school hard knocks. He made the mistakes and he figured it out. And he learned how to raise capital. He
did that without a Stanford degree.
And he did it without. And so I'm not like anti-school because I did learn a lot doing it, but.
Yeah, I'm going to say this, guys. We've been on the show quite a long time here, and hopefully everybody's enjoyed the show. We got a lot of good information, content that was put out. We'll have you guys back. I'm going to go across the room here. You guys can just let the audience know how they can get a hold of you, including you, Mr. Dragon, over here, because I want people to know you're on here a lot, and I don't think a lot of people you're not pushed a lot on the show. I want to get your information out there. So, real quick, Kit, how does somebody get a hold of you, buddy?
Well, I'm on social media all the time, so you can DM me anywhere.
You DM?
Absolutely. Slide into my DMs, folks. Especially if you want to get into real estate and you just want to chat, slide into them. You can reach me at the Kit Carson on Instagram, Facebook, just Kit Carson.
Yeah.
And then my website is just thecarsongroupnv.com. That's just my personal one to reach me. Just DM me on any of it, and I'll see it.
All right. Yep. Mr. Rich Salas, what's going on, buddy?
Hey.
How does somebody get a hold of you?
So, actually, the best way to get a hold of me is probably my email. And I will say that we did get a good domain name back in the day. We got www.attorneylasvegas.com.
There you go, buddy.
That has the best SEO ever.
It's pretty great. But Richard
that.
Kevin at attorneylasvegas.com. Unfortunately, I'm a little anti-social media, which is not great in this day and age.
It's tough, man. If
But
you're
I'm trying to get past it. I just joined Reddit last week, and I'm getting addicted already.
Oh, watch
So
out.
We'll move on to others.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. You got a lot of valid points, a lot of good content, a lot of good information you brought to the table, so I appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. And then we got Mr. We'll go to Mike Keeler first. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, well, I just put it in the chat window there, peakfinancialsolutions.com, best place
Oh,
to
so
find
you
me.
already, look at you, man. You got all
Dude,
the,
yeah.
you already put in. So get a hold of Mike, man. He's a good dude. He's a financial planner. He's not going to try to, he's going to follow what you want. I mean, that's pretty much what.
I'm not going to Bernie Madoff you.
He's not gonna Then we got Mr. Joe Dragon, buddy. Pitch yourself, man. I want people to know who you are and how they get a hold of you and your website.
All right, so easily Joe Dragon. So you want to get a hold of me, dragonlawgroup.com. I don't have the domain name, but I do have the name. So you can type in Joe Dragon, I should pop up. Although there is some runner kid that keeps stealing my name. What can you do? Or Jay Dragon at dragonlawgroup.com. I handle litigation, mostly business litigation and estate planning. I think Rich would agree that now when we're talking about this kind of craziness with the economy, there's nothing better than setting up estate planning or a proper business entity structure to make sure that you are secured and your assets are secured for your future of your kids. So that's how you get a hold of me. And then I just like to, Kit Carson. I still get you guys.
You're gonna be thinking about that tonight.
You guys know who
Do you want an autograph?
I think I did. You guys know who Lewis and Clark is, right?
Kit
No,
Carson.
a lot of it. No, I actually am I'm very I don't even know the right word to say. The reaction you have, not a lot of people have that reaction.
Well,
anymore.
I grew up in your Gardenville is.
Yeah, I do. I bought
Douglas
houses
County,
out there.
just south of
Yep.
Carson.
Yep.
So everything's named Carson. Carson
Yep.
City, Carson
Yep.
River, Carson Pass. And I grew up in this area and who's this Carson guy? And I actually looked him up when I was a kid and had this interest in Kit Carson.
But he's a small world, though, man. That's a pretty crazy coincidence.
But he's
I'd
literally
say.
this the real Kit Carson. But you're real too, but the legendary. Real Kit. I mean, he was Lewis and Clark legendary. He's one of those early explorers. So that's really
Yeah, he
cool.
was. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank
I didn't
you,
even think his bloodline was still there. I haven't thought about
Well,
it.
they
but
named the capital
looked
after
it up.
him,
Appreciate
so
that.
why not?
But no, it's great talking to you.
Appreciate that, man.
All right, guys, we're going to end the show. Thank you guys for tuning in to the show here on a Tuesday. We'll be back here on Saturday. This is the French Workbench Podcast. If you guys have not hit that like button, please hit it. As you're looking at this content, if you like it, please subscribe to the channel. Truly appreciate all the support and the love that you gave this channel. You guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you on Saturday. I'm out. Thank you for watching an episode of the French Workbench Podcast. If you want to tune into past episodes, please subscribe to my channel now. Also, if you want to look at our audio-only options, we do have iTunes and SoundCloud.